Bueller's presentation on There is a Woe That Is Madness, The Chase for Happiness, and Herman Melville's Moby Dick. It was a pleasure to have Kenedy in class all last year while we read and discussed Moby Dick. She did a wonderful job in discussion, and she elected to take on this very difficult, challenging work for her senior thesis, and really produced a wonderful paper over the course of the semester. So I look forward to hearing the presentation. Kenedy, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. The sky is clear and the open ocean awaits. The air, fragrant with adventure, fills the lungs of each sailor. The rolling waves seem to call each willing heart, whispering, "You will never be the same." In Herman Melville's seminal classic, Moby Dick, sailors aboard the Pequod hunt for the infamous white whale in order to avenge the loss of Captain Ahab's leg. My thesis is that as it explores the idea of a search for God through the symbolism of the chase for the white whale, Moby Dick emphasizes the ability to become a better person through a search for higher good in the path of life. In this presentation, I hope to show that the characters of Ishmael and Ahab are changed for either the better or worse through 1, their approaches to a journey in life, 2, the ways in which they connect with people and with nature, and 3, how they react to the challenges that they face along the way. Firstly, the way in which a character approaches a journey in life affects the way in which he is changed during that journey. So in the novel, we can see that Ishmael and Ahab start in a similar place. They are both depressed and seeking action. They both see unavoidable misery and agony in the universe, but what sets them apart from each other is Ishmael sees this miserable universe, but he really wants to improve himself and improve his own conditions. And he looks to a higher power, a higher good in order to achieve that. Ahab, on the other hand, really focuses in on this evil, and he entrenches himself in it. He seeks revenge for the loss of his leg, and he blames Moby Dick for all that's gone wrong in his life and all of his misery. What makes this worse is that Ahab is fighting with forces that are beyond his control, which is why Starbuck calls it his heaven-insulting purpose. So we see that these two characters, Ishmael and Ahab, begin in a similar place, but they have two different approaches to this journey that they're about to go on. Secondly, the nature of the relationships with people and with nature influence how the characters develop for either the better or the worse. Early in the novel, we see that Ishmael forms a really close friendship with Queequeg, who he is terrified of at first. He is this pagan, cannibal, savage figure in the novel, but as Ishmael begins to know him better, he really opens his heart, and it unlocks a more understanding side of him, and it makes him a more understanding and more loving person, which makes him stronger and happier. We also see later in the novel how he connects with the crew of the Pequod. In a squeeze of a hand, they are tasked with this manual labor, but instead of moving on with it as quickly as possible, he really allows himself to enjoy the beauty of the moment, and he's really overwhelmed by the camaraderie that he feels with his fellow whalers. And he really is raised above his depression, if only temporarily in this point, by that connection with other people, that positive connection. We also see how Ishmael connects to nature in various places. He, again, really sees the beauty in the moment and rises above this more practical, logical side of the situation. And this changes him and influences him and allows him to reflect inward. On the other hand, Ishmael made really good connections. Ahab makes terrible ones throughout the book. We see how he forms this he has an ally in Fadala in a sense, or at least he thinks that he does, which kind of represents his deal with the devil in the book. He's willing to trade things left in his life that are good in order to seek vengeance on Moby Dick, which is a negative relationship. We also see Starbuck, the chief mate, offers the potential for a really healthy relationship, a really healthy friendship with Ahab. He has the heart to love Ahab and the wisdom to guide him from this harmful path, but Ahab manipulates the relationship in order to chase Moby Dick, and it even comes to the point where Starbuck considers murdering Ahab. So this relationship has been completely wrecked by Ahab. We also see that Ahab, when he's in several moments in the novel, when he is looking out onto the beauty of nature and the beauty of the world, he, instead of seeing it as a chance to be happy without his leg, he sees it as a reminder of what he's lost. And he doesn't have any hope of reaching any normalcy back in his life. So again, we see Ishmael really lets these relationships and these influences make him a better person, while Ahab does the opposite. Thirdly, the way in which Ishmael and Ahab react to challenges affect how they change in the story. Ishmael, we see in the beginning of the book, he says that he has joined Ahab's quest for Moby Dick, he says, because of the dread in his soul. But as soon as he sees just how truly evil it is, he wants to run from it and completely remove himself from it, which we see in the try-works. He says, quote, "Give not thyself up then to the fire, lest it invert thee, deaden thee, as for a time it did me. There is a wisdom that is woe, but there is a woe that is madness," end quote. So in this passage, we see that Ishmael is not saying that we should ignore the fact that there is evil in the world. We're not ignoring the facts of reality, but we don't want to wallow in those things and let them overcome us and corrupt us. So we see that Ahab, in the course of the novel, has really taken on this woe that is madness. Ahab, we see he is smoking at one point in the novel, and this pipe is set up to be something that's healing and cleansing. And once Ahab realizes this, he throws it into the sea still lit, because he does not want to be swayed even in the slightest from his path for vengeance. We also see that he distances himself from Pip, a small boy aboard the ship, because when he is with him, he feels his resolve weakening, and he wants to be dramatically removed from this. So as his path of vengeance is threatened by various positive influences, he runs from them. Lastly, we see that the end of a character's journey reflect the choices that they've made along the way. So Ishmael is the only survivor of the Pequod, and he sees his second chance at life as an opportunity to warn others and teach others what he's learned throughout the journey, which is Moby Dick. As the reader, we can see the follies of different crew members and how they learn and how they face challenges, and that serves as a reminder to us. Ahab, on the other hand, in the end, he recognizes that his choices have been foolish and have made him more miserable, but instead of owning up to them and turning back, he blames them on fate. And he dies at his own hand, explicitly saying that he believes he's going to hell, but he doesn't care. So in the end, we see that although Ishmael and Ahab began in a somewhat similar place of depression, they really end on opposite sides of the spectrum because of the choices they made along the way. So in conclusion, Ishmael throughout the novel wants to be bettered, and he seeks help in higher things. He's not perfect, and he does stray from the path at times, but he tries again and again to do what is best. He learns from his journey on the Pequod, and he is better for it. Ahab, however, refused to be improved during his journey, and he ran from good opportunities at every chance. His hate-filled death is the result. In essence, he distanced himself from the good and the beautiful, which left him a broken and miserable man.
Thank you for that presentation. I'll be asking questions for the next 7 minutes or so. The first question is, in your section on reactions to challenges, you noted that Ishmael feels sympathy and indeed enthusiasm for Ahab's quest at the beginning of the voyage. He's swept up in Ahab's rhetoric, and he also vows to find and kill Moby Dick. Why do you think that is? What do you think attracts him to the mission?
I think Ahab is this mysterious captain, but Ishmael and Ahab, like I discussed, are both depressed at the beginning of the novel, and to someone who is lost, like Ishmael is, an opportunity like this, something that seems very strong and passionate and sure to be empowering, defeating this mighty and legendary whale, seems very appealing. And he has gone out with the purpose of doing something in his life, and when this opportunity is presented to him, it seems promising. And we see in the book that the entire crew kind of lifts up their cries with Ahab, and they're all swept up in the moment, and they all feel this passion that Ahab does, even if it's not quite as deep as Ahab's passion is. So I think that, again, he is kind of showing that when we are lost, it's very easy to be swayed from the right path, which is kind of, I think, what makes his journey so incredible. He does fall from the correct path, the correct journey, multiple times, but again and again, he really, really tries to do it his best, and we can see that his results are better for it.
The book seems to be, in ways, a spiritual book. So I wonder, can you read the book and find Ahab to be a sympathetic character, or is he evil? While you're thinking about that, in the NFL today, we have scandals in the Major League Baseball where these teams that have won the World Series or won the championship, we come back later, a year or two later, and find out they cheated. And so they had this singular pursuit of one thing, and sometimes that can drive you to good and sometimes to bad. So the question I have is, can we find something redemptive or good about Ahab? Or is he just lost and to be written off as evil?
I think
Or somewhere in between?
I think it can be kind of dangerous in many cases to sort of just write a character off as evil, purely just using that one descriptive word. I think really Ahab, I think not that that isn't necessarily true, but I think in a lot of cases we see that person, that character, whether it's real life or in a novel or any other case, we see them as something other than human in that sense. And so it's a little bit less dangerous for us to fall to those things ourselves because we've already set them apart with that sort of category of evil. I think he is evil in the sense that he again and again willfully ignores what is good and strays onto that path. So I do think he is evil in that sense, but I think also it's important to note, and something that I really noticed again and again in the novel, is this evil that he's succumbing to is pure evil, but it's also he's succumbing to the worst parts of his own humanity.
So it's human in the end, which is good. So, okay, thank you.
You described the Triworks chapter at one point in the paper in which Ishmael dramatically falls asleep at the helm, but he wakes up just in time to keep the ship from capsizing. And he warns mankind in general after that experience not to stare too long into the face of the fire, lest it invert thee as for a time it did me. And in your paper, you write that he does not advocate for a mentality which denies the existence of evil, but he strives to keep himself from being corrupted by it. So could you elaborate a little bit on that moment and what you're saying here? What is the realization that Ishmael has at that moment in the Triworks chapter? What kind of evil is he acknowledging but not allowing to corrupt him?
Could you restate the last part of it?
So can you elaborate on the realization that Ishmael has in that Triworks chapter? What kind of realization is he having? What kind of evil is he acknowledging but not allowing to corrupt him?
I think, in a sense, kind of going back to what I was just saying, is it's sort of this evil that is ultimately is kind of sprouting out of our own weaknesses and our humanity in a sense. And again, like looking too long into the face of the fire, this idea of something that's entrancing in a sense and really draws us in and pulls us in. And he says it deadens him. So it really is a really unhealthy influence to be so entranced by something that's evil, even though it may not appear so at first. And I think in that scene, it's such a dramatic separation And we see before that point in the novel, several points, like I mentioned, where he kind of is temporarily lifted above Ahab's mission, and he sees that it's wrong, but he doesn't really recognize how truly evil it is until that moment. And in that scene, the ship is described as being hellish, and it's sort of this really demonic, ugly, evil scene where all of the crew is working toward this evil mission of Ahab's. So I think kind of the point is ultimately, I guess, that as people, we can recognize that something doesn't seem to sit right with sort of our inner instincts, moral instincts. We can recognize that something is wrong. But until we really make that final, actual, complete break with it, we're not actually safe from it, in a sense.
Okay, thank you very much, Kenny. Let's give her another hand. And we have our 5-minute passing period now, so if you'd like to